Welcome to drone building part 3, assembling the arms onto the bottom plate of the Flamewheel 550. Now I soldered all the ESCs on last night along with the power module for the APM, and earlier today I mounted my anti-vibration plate for the APM flight controller, and all I did to mount that was hot glue and some more hot glue, stuck it down on there, and that thing's rock solid. It ain't going nowhere. Hot glue is very good in the hobby field. It dries fast, it's strong. If you have to sometime remove it, you can without doing any permanent damage. But let's get started. I got my 6 arms here, 2 red, 4 white. I'm going to have the 2 red ones facing the back because I always picture red as like tail lights in your car. I'm also going to have my red LEDs in the back sometime whenever I hook those up. Then I have the screws that came in the kit, and all I'm going to do is flip this guy over. This would be the bottom. And my ESC wires are going to go through this little loop right here. Every drone or every build's different. You can do it differently if you want. That's just the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to get a couple arms. I'm going to space them all out just to hold this thing up. While I'm working. So then what you do is you take the screws, screw them into the holes. Pretty simple, huh? These screws that came with the kit, they have a tiny little bit of blue thread lock on them. This is an official DJI Flamewheel 550 kit, so they came with the screws with the thread locker on them, which is quite nice. That clone I built last year didn't have thread locker on the screws, and I've had them vibrate loose and actually pull through the board in multiple crashes it's had. I have a whole bunch of tiny little washers I could put on here to make it less easy to pull through, but I would rather have the screws pull through the board instead of breaking my board in a crash. I can always add washers later if the screws do pull through the board. So okay, there you have it. Assembled. Now, before I put the top plate on, I'm going to mount my flight controller, my receiver, my on-screen display module, first-person view transmitter, GPS. I'm going to wire basically everything up on the whole drone before I put this top plate on, because as soon as I get this top plate on, it'll be hard to access. But first, I'm going to mount this to my landing gear. Now, let me talk about my landing gear for a second. This is the landing gear I have. It came from China from a US buyer, and none of it fit together like it's supposed to. Like, I had to take a chainsaw file and file out everywhere one of these carbon fiber rods went into these plastic arms, because none of the holes were big enough for those to slide through. And if I would have forced them in, it would have broke the plastic, and we don't want that. So filed to get this all to fit. I complained to the seller, and he sent me a $5 rebate, which is nice. This is a $15 landing gear kit. So it cost me 10 bucks. This part in the middle, that holds, that's my gimbal, actually part that came with my gimbal. I just drilled holes through that and mounted it right to these metal D-rings, I guess you would call them. It's all rubber mounted. But after I assembled this and filed all these carbon fiber rods in there, the little mounting plates they gave me that they're supposed to screw to these into these and to that into that, they didn't fit. I mean, the holes didn't line up to where I could have filed those out and made those fit, but then there would have been more plates and more screws. Because there's supposed to be 2 plates that go on this that would also screw to your DJI frame, but drilled 2 holes in there. That's nice and solid. That ain't moving nowhere. That holds my gimbal, my 2-axis gimbal. And then I drilled holes actually in my quadcopters, or in my hexcopter's frame. Right there, right there, right there, and right there. Drilled my own holes in the frame. And those holes are going to line up real nice right with those mounts right there. Saving a couple mounting plates, saving some screws, just making everything a little bit easier. Well, not easier since I had to modify and drill my own holes, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. So now I'm gonna take the screws that came in the kit. I got a little washer on there to make it a little bit stronger since I did drill my own holes. We'll just screw that onto there. I'm going to wrap this up by mounting my flight controller. This is the APM 2.8 onto my vibration dampening board, which I have glued on to the center of my frame, and it's in the center. I don't know if it has to be in the center, but you would think that with all its sensors in there for everything it does, the closer to the center of the drone the better. I'm not sure on that. That's just what I prefer to do, is mount the flight controller right in the center of the drone. And since I'm using the 5-volt power module that comes with the APM, there's a jumper here, JP1. You have to remove that jumper if your flight controller has that installed, because it's going to send in 5 volts through this section here, the PM power module spot. If you don't remove that jumper, you get your 5 volts from the BECs built into your ESCs, your engine speed controller. You don't want to have the 5 volts coming from your power module and your BECs all at the same time. Now, some of the kits come with the jumper installed, some of them don't. This one had the jumper in there. I just reached in there with my needle nose pliers, pulled it out. It's just a tiny little piece of plastic with 2 little metal prongs on it that connects these 2 pins together. So if you have that jumper on there and you're using the power module, take it out. Anyway, I have Velcro, sticky double-sided Velcro. So I'm going to peel off there's an arrow here pointing forward. You want that pointing towards the front of your drone. Try to get it as perfect as possible. push it on there real nice, and there you have it. Flight controller mounted onto the board. See, it wiggles around a little bit, which you want. You don't want any vibrations coming off of your drone messing with them delicate sensors in there. Have a good night, folks. Keep flying. Have fun.